Finding a good co-op game is harder than it looks. You don't just want something fun, you want something that actually works when you're playing with someone on the same couch or with a friend halfway across the country. This year has been quite a surprise in the co-op department, and I've put together a list of 10 games that I sincerely think are worth keeping an eye on, whether for split screen or online play. I'm Matthew, and the video is about to start. If you're a fan of Batman Lego, or simply want a game to play with someone by your side, I need to tell you about Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. This game arrives on May 22nd, 2026. The game tells Batman's origin story, from Bruce Wayne's training with the League of Shadows to becoming Gotham's legendary protector. The campaign is driven by an original narrative that blends 86 years of Batman history, comics, movies, series, everything. And the most impressive part is that Gotham City here is an open world divided into 4 islands, with iconic locations like Wayne Tower, Arkham Asylum, and Ace Chemicals. It's not your typical generic Gotham. It's a city built for you to want to explore every corner. The combat system is the point that excited me most about this entire project. TT Games took a lot of inspiration from the Batman, Arkham games, fluid combos, counters, stealth, use of gadgets, and mixed it with the light and fun style of the Lego franchise. You have 7 playable characters: Batman, Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, Catwoman, Jim Gordon, and Talia al Ghul, each with their own gadgets and combat styles. Catwoman uses the whip, Batman uses the Batclaw, Robin has more emphasis on platforming. Each character really feels different. And the villains: Joker, Penguin, Poison Ivy, Ra's al Ghul, Bane. The list is good. Legacy of the Dark Knight features local co-op for 2 players, the famous couch co-op. You and another person on the same sofa, sharing the screen, exploring Gotham together, beating up thugs side by side. The missions are designed for this. Puzzles involve task division between characters, and the combat dynamics work very well as a duo. The experience was clearly built to be played with someone, which makes perfect sense for a Lego game. Now, there's a part that will frustrate many. Online co-op doesn't exist. Warner officially confirmed there won't be any, and TT Games never fully explained the reason, but it's speculated that development time issues were a factor. To play together, it needs to be live in the same place. But honestly, that doesn't ruin the game. The couch co-op vibe is exactly what the Lego franchise has always been, and Legacy of the Dark Knight is embracing that head-on. If you have someone to sit next to you and enjoy Gotham and Lego, this is one of the 2026 games you definitely cannot ignore. Imagine you and up to 3 friends playing as brave little mice exploring an enchanted Nordic forest. That is exactly the spirit of Hela, of Mice and Magic, a 3D cooperative adventure developed by Wind Up Games and published by Knight's Peak Games. The story begins in a way that goes straight to the heart. A gentle witch who for years cared for the lands and the small beings living in them begins to fall ill. And those who spring into action to save her are her most faithful companions, brave little mice who set out on a journey to collect ingredients, prepare magic potions, and restore the balance of the land. There is no combat, no enemies to defeat with force. The total focus is on kindness, cooperation, and discovery. It's a type of game you rarely see on the market these days. The game world is inspired by northern Sweden and Scandinavian folklore, with landscapes ranging from mountain trails to magical forests and quiet lakes. Each little mouse carries a magical frog-shaped backpack, the famous Froggy Backpack, which allows gliding through the air, swinging like Spider-Man, pulling objects, creating bridges, and much more. The more you explore, the more story fragments you find, and your acts of kindness toward wild animals unlock new movement skills. You can play solo, in local split screen with a friend, or in online co-op with up to 4 players. The game's puzzles and challenges were specifically designed for teamwork, with each mouse having different skills that need to be combined to advance. It's not that generic multiplayer where the second player just appears as decoration. Here, communication and coordination are a central part of the experience. What really draws attention for those playing solo is the shade system. It creates ghost versions of the other players controlled by the game, allowing a solo player to solve puzzles created for multiple characters without needing an online friend. Bloodstained, the Scarlet Engagement is the new chapter of the franchise, created by Koji Igarashi, the same guy behind Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and is planned for 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. If you enjoyed Ritual of the Night, or are simply a fan of Metroidvania-style games with that heavy gothic vibe, this one deserves all your attention. The story takes place in 16th century England, well before the events of Ritual of the Night, making this game a prequel. The ethereal castle, controlled by the demon lord Elias, hovers over the kingdom, launching hordes of monsters against the population, and all attempts to defeat him have failed. It is in this chaotic scenario that two completely different heroes are forced to work together. Leonard Brandon, a young warrior from the church's Black Wolves clan, and Alexander Keiteller, a lone knight from the kingdom's White Stags. The premise is simple on paper, but the game makes it clear from the start that neither of them would have the slightest chance alone. And that's exactly where the game's great mechanical differentiator comes in: the buddy system. You control both characters at the same time, having direct control of one while the other acts as an ally in combat, and you can switch between them at any moment. Director Shutaro confirmed in an interview that even in solo mode, you can give commands to the AI character to cast spells or execute specific combos at the right time. It's not just a matter of preference. Mastering this system is literally mandatory to advance in the largest game of the franchise to date. Now, about the co-op. The game supports local co-op, where a second player can take control of the second character instead of leaving it to the AI. This completely changes the dynamic, because coordination between two human players opens up space for attack combinations and strategies that simply don't happen with the AI in command. It's worth noting that from what is confirmed so far, the co-op is only local. Online is not listed as supported. This can be an important limitation depending on how you want to present the game to your audience. In addition to the buddy system and co-op, the game brings a day and night cycle system with 4 distinct periods that directly affect gameplay and interaction with the world. There's also the Epiphany combat system, which allows discovering new moves and special attacks during the combats themselves, crafting, cooking, visual customization of armor, and a class system to define your playstyle complete the package. If you haven't heard of Ikuma, the Frozen Compass yet, today is the day. This game is developed by Mounier Studios, the same German indie studio behind Lost Ember, and arrives in 2026 for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. The premise hooks you right away. You are Sam, a young cabin boy shipwrecked on an Arctic island in 1864, alone at the end of the world with only a husky named Ellie. No armies, no superpowers. Just you, the dog, and the ice. What impresses me here isn't the survival itself, it's what it represents within the story. Ikuma is a coming-of-age game. Sam isn't just trying not to die. He carries a heavy past, and throughout the adventure, you begin to understand who he really is. The narrative is fully dubbed, and was inspired by the real Franklin expedition of 1845, one of the most tragic and mysterious stories of polar exploration. This detail already elevates the game a level above what most survival games even try to reach. The open world runs on Unreal Engine 5, and if you've seen any gameplay, you know the Arctic in this game looks too real. Glaciers, caves, shipwrecks buried under the ice. But the developers were very clear. They don't want to create a punitive game. Survival exists to make you feel the pressure of the environment, not to make you restart the match every time. You will manage resources, climb, fish. All of this, however, at the service of the story, not against you. Now, what makes this game truly special? The co-op. Instead of putting two players with the same skills, the game divides the roles in a way rarely seen. One player controls Sam, uses tools, solves puzzles, interacts with the environment as a human would. The other player controls Ellie, the dog, with a sharp sense of smell, agility, and access to places Sam could never reach. This is not a gimmick. Playing as a dog is literally half the game. The mode is couch co-op with split screen. So it's that sofa experience that many people miss these days. You and a friend, each with a controller, each with a completely different role in the story. Those who play solo can switch between Sam and Ellie freely, but trust me, the experience of having someone by your side living this Arctic together with you is the high point of the game. Ikuma arrives in 2026, and it's one of the most original co-op titles I've seen announced in recent times. Keep an eye out.
Quiet now. They're close.
If you have a Nintendo Switch 2 or are thinking about buying one, Orbitals might be one of the best arguments that exist for it. The game was announced at the Game Awards 2025, is developed by Shape Farm, a debut studio based in Mitaka, Tokyo, and published by Kepler Interactive, the same publisher behind Sifu, Pacific Drive, and Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. When you join a new studio with a publisher that has this history, you pay attention, and Orbitals deserves all that attention. The premise is direct. You and another player control Maki and Omura, two explorers on an intergalactic mission to save their planet from a cosmic storm called the Storm Wall. The aesthetic is inspired by classic 90s anime, with that retro look that mixes science fiction with a visual charm that strongly reminds of Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, and productions of that period. The rhythm of the game alternates between moments of tension and more contemplative sequences, which makes the atmosphere breathe between one puzzle and another. It's not just beautiful, it's built with very clear visual intention. The gameplay itself is an adventure puzzle developed in Unreal Engine 5 and includes cave exploration, ship piloting through asteroid fields, and mini-games spread throughout the journey. Each level presents new mechanics, and the game was completely thought out so that the two players need to communicate all the time to advance. There is no easy path where one player carries the other. Here, if one stalls, both stay still. And that's where the co-op gets really interesting. The design is asymmetric. Each player controls a character with completely different tools. One uses the beam cannon to recharge the CH-1B1 drone battery and destroy obstacles, while the other handles the scrap hook to move platforms, pull levers, and open paths. The functions do not overlap. They complement each other. It's the type of co-op design that forces a real conversation between the players, not just pressing buttons at the same time. And Shape Farm took great advantage of the Switch 2 hardware to offer various ways to play together. You can use split screen on a single console with two pairs of Joy-Con 2, use Game Share to connect two consoles locally, including with a compatible original Switch, or play online with Game Chat and the system's integrated microphone. The game will also have full voice acting in Japanese and English, further reinforcing the cinematic care that Shape Farm is seeking. Orbitals is planned for launch in the winter of 2026. And it's exactly the type of game that justifies buying a new console to play with someone by your side. In Haunted Paws, you control two puppies trying to rescue their human friend inside a haunted mansion, mixing light horror, adventure, and puzzle with a very different look than normal. What I find strongest here is the contrast between cuteness and tension, because Haunted Paws doesn't try to be heavy horror, but rather a cozy co-op horror, where everything revolves around puppies, exploring scary environments, escaping from evil creatures, and solving mysteries. This concept works very well because the game doesn't depend only on the pretty visual. The proposal involves action, exploration, and even facing monsters that hide dark pasts, which gives an extra layer to the adventure. In gameplay, the coolest hook is that the game embraces real canine behaviors to become mechanics. The puppies can dig, sniff out clues, bark, hide, and use very thematic interactions to advance through the scenarios and escape from dangers. For me, this leaves the game with more personality than a lot of generic co-op, because it doesn't seem like just a puzzle game with a dog skin. It really tries to make you think and act like a duo of dogs inside that mansion. Now, about the co-op itself, that's where Haunted Paws most sells itself. The experience was designed for two people with support for local split-screen cooperative and also online, so it works both on the sofa and with a friend at a distance. Better yet, the official descriptions and marketing materials say that only one person needs to buy the game to invite another to play for free, which immediately places Haunted Paws in the category of those co-ops easy to recommend without fear. There's even a detail that helps a lot in the game's appeal. The customization of the dogs seems to be quite strong, with choice of breed, fur color, and accessories, to the point where the disclosure itself highlights the idea of recreating your real-life dog. Sincerely, it's this type of detail that transforms Haunted Paws from a cute horror game into a co-op with its own identity, because it joins accessibility, charisma, and cooperation in a way that seems perfect for couples, friends, or any duo that wants a lighter adventure, but still full of atmosphere and moments of controlled fright. Have you ever wondered what a dungeon brawler would be like, where the physics of the world is literally your most powerful weapon? This is Awaysis, the most ambitious game that 17BIT has ever made, a Japanese indie studio based in Kyoto, headed by Jake Kasdal, who has already proven several times that he knows how to make games with plenty of personality. The game arrives for PC via Steam, PS5, and Xbox Series in 2026, and right on day one, it will be available on Xbox Game Pass, which is good news for those keeping an eye on the catalog. The premise is simpler and more direct than it seems. You control a tiny and adorable creature that needs to scale the floating mountain of Awaysis to defeat the fearsome Dark Lord of Darkness. Yes, that's the name. And the game embraces this nonsense seriousness with open arms. But what seems like any brawler changes completely when you understand that combat here doesn't work with traditional combos. The central idea is momentum, you climb slopes to gain speed, use inertia to collide with enemies, and literally send them flying off the map. It's chaotic, it's hilarious, and it works in a way few games can. The emergent physics system is the heart of all this. 17BIT calls it a mix between reactive and emergent physics, with controls that refer to the arcade style to ensure that the madness never gets out of the player's control. The environments are dynamic. You pass through open fields, lava caves, and arenas that change throughout the battle. And the composer of all this is Hip Tanaka, who is an absolute legend in the industry, responsible for iconic Nintendo soundtracks. Just his name on the project already says a lot about the level of care that 17BIT is putting here. The game supports online co-op for up to 4 players, with cross-platform multiplayer and also couch co-op for those who want to play next to someone. The dynamic changes completely in a group because the physics chaos multiplies. Now you have to coordinate with your friends, who will gain momentum who will push the enemy to the edge, and inevitably someone will send the ally to the abyss in the middle of a battle. But the game goes beyond pure cooperation. It has a mode called Co-opetition, with variants like King of the Hill, Deathmatch, and the creative Brawly Ball, where friends become rivals in the same session. If you have doubt whether the game is worth the attention, 17bit launched a demo at the Steam Next Fest with the first 3 missions playable, and the reception was very positive. The full game will have 24 levels at launch, which for an indie brawler is a generous amount of content. Jake Kasdal said at the Mix Spring Game Showcase 2026 that this is the largest project that 17bit has ever developed, and that the idea is to create something genuinely new in the physical combat genre. Awaysis looks like a game that will be much more fun than any trailer can show.
Three, two, one, fight!
There are games that are part of gaming history, and Halo Combat Evolved from 2001 is definitely one of them. Now, in 2026, Halo Studios, formerly 343 Industries, with a renewed name and a much clearer focus, decided to revisit this legend with Halo Campaign Evolved, a complete remake built from scratch, available on Xbox Series, PC, and for the first time in the history of the franchise, on PlayStation 5. Yes, you read that right. Master Chief is arriving on PlayStation. This already says a lot about how Microsoft is thinking differently in 2026. The game is a faithful reconstruction of the original campaign, with high-definition visuals running on Unreal Engine 5, fully remade cinematics, remastered soundtrack, and sound reconstructed from scratch. But Halo Studios didn't just stop at the visual. They added 9 extra weapons from previous games in the series, the ability to pilot a Wraith, something that was never possible in the original version, and 3 completely new prequel missions starring Master Chief and Sergeant Johnson, exploring events before the start of Halo Combat Evolved. It's not just a remaster. It's the game that the original could have been if it had more time and tools. Another detail that deserves highlight is the expanded Skulls system, which the game calls Campaign Remix. They are optional modifiers that you activate to remix any mission with random weapons, enemies with different behaviors, environment variations, and limited ammo challenges. This transforms each replay into a different experience, which is perfect for those who want more than just finishing the campaign once. And speaking of the Flood, they return with smarter IA and scarier behavior, with the infamous The Library level being one of the most worked on by the devs precisely to work better in co-op. And then we get to the point that matters most for this video, the co-op. For the first time in the history of Halo Combat Evolved, the campaign supports up to 4 players in simultaneous online co-op with full crossplay between PC, Xbox Series, and PS5, and cross-progression, meaning your progress synchronizes regardless of which platform you are using. The mode has drop-in and drop-out, so any friend can enter in the middle of a mission without you needing to restart anything. The host defines the active skulls, and everyone plays with the same conditions. It's the type of co-op that should have existed from the beginning. For those who prefer the sofa, the 2-player split screen is back on consoles, Xbox and PS5, and producer Damon Kahn was very specific in saying that maintaining local co-op was a priority to preserve the feeling of community that Halo has always had. The game still arrives day one on Game Pass, so the barrier to entry has never been lower to play Halo with friends. Whether reliving memories or discovering the ring for the first time, Halo Campaign Evolved seems to be exactly what the franchise needed. An honest, fresh start without trying to reinvent what was already perfect. I'm going to be direct. If you enjoyed the chaos of Peak, Aggro Crab just confirmed that that was only the warm-up. Crashout Crew is the next game from the Seattle studio, and it arrives on May 28, 2026, with a premise so absurd it seems impossible not to want to play. You and up to 3 friends are employees of Denial Shipping, the most efficient warehouse in the world. and your job is to deliver boxes with completely uncontrolled physics while the chaos around grows mission by mission. What is interesting to know is that this game was born from an internal game jam of the studio itself in 2025, at the same time that part of the team worked on Peak with Landfall, which shows how much Aggro Crab operates at a frenetic and consistent creative rhythm. The heart of the game is physics, and it is in everything. The boxes you need to deliver behave in completely unpredictable ways. The forklifts swerve, skid, and collide spectacularly, and each fulfilled contract escalates in complexity and absurdity. What seems most intelligent here to me is that the game has a light progression between contracts, where you can temporarily improve your forklift or the warehouse with resources gained in the missions, but everything restarts upon finishing each contract, which keeps everyone at the same level and encourages cooperation with each new round instead of accumulating advantage. The detail that will definitely leave the sessions with friends even noisier are the safety violations, which are optional modifiers that you can activate to increase the difficulty and absurdity inside the warehouse. Imagine already being at the limit, trying to deliver an unstable crate, and someone in the group decides to activate a rule that makes the floor slippery, or the boxes multiply. It's exactly this type of calculated madness that Aggro Crab has as a trademark since Going Under and Another Crab's Treasure, and Crashout Crew seems to carry that with much pride. About the co-op itself, the game supports from 1 to 4 players online and has already been confirmed for PC via Steam and Xbox Series. And look, in the case of smaller Seattle studios that know how to build multiplayer dynamics like Aggro Crab, this range of 1 to 4 makes total sense. You can play solo to learn the chaos, in pairs in a more controlled partnership, or in 4s where each one will inevitably blame the other for the failed contract. The demo was available at the Steam Next Fest of October 2025, and the feedback gathered by the studio before the official launch shows that they were very serious with the refinement process. What closes the argument in favor of Crashout Crew is who is making the game. Aggro Crab reached 2025 with Peak selling more than 10 million copies in co-op, and now bets on a smaller, more focused, and equally chaotic project while keeping Peak with active updates in parallel. This type of indie studio posture, where you launch 2 different projects almost at the same time without abandoning either of the two, is rare and deserves respect. Crashout Crew is not a game that tries to be huge, but rather a co-op that wants to be the type of experience that you and your friends will want to repeat every week. And by Aggro Crab's track record, the chances of it delivering exactly that are very high. If you want to talk about a 2026 co-op that passes a real feeling of total freedom, Streets of Rogue 2 is a very strong name. And sincerely, just the proposal already sells very well. It's a crazy open-world procedural sandbox RPG where you can fight, steal, hack, farm, build, rob, or simply talk to reach the objective and overthrow a corrupt president. The great charm here is that Streets of Rogue 2 doesn't seem like a sequence that only increases map and number of items. It wants to transform the anarchy of the first game into a much larger and more systemic sandbox. The world is generated procedurally, has cities, countryside, caves, islands, and other biomes, besides stealable vehicles, destructible buildings, dozens of classes, and a huge pile of weapons and gadgets, which creates that feeling that each session can turn into a completely different absurd story from the previous one. For me, what makes the game seem truly special is the amount of ways to approach each situation. You don't enter a mission thinking only about combat, because the game already makes it clear that you can improvise with stealth, conversation, exploration, construction, traps, and pure chaos. And that is exactly the type of design that generates very good video moments, because nothing goes as planned. And the Paradise trailer of 2025 reinforced this, showing new biomes, animals, updated interface, and even crazier situations, so you can tell that the project continues to grow in scope and variety. In co-op, Streets of Rogue 2 already seems like a monster of possibilities. The game's page on Steam confirms support for online co-op, LAN co-op, and split-screen co-op, while sources focused on multiplayer point to cooperative for up to 4 players, both local and online. The most interesting thing in all this is imagining 4 people inside this open world trying to collaborate without transforming the mission into a collective accident. Because this type of game always works better when each player follows their own logic and the group's plan goes wrong in a funny way. Streets of Rogue 2 seems to me one of the most promising co-op projects of this cycle. It's not just about playing with friends, but about creating chaotic stories together within a world that was clearly made to react to what you invent.